Welcome. Recently, I have been wondering about the lack of yogas, the planetary combination in Krishnamurti Paddhati. In some of my videos, I have been pointing out this noticeable shortcoming in the KP astrology. So, in this video, I'm going to take a closer look. Now, the planetary combination might not be a proper word in the Krishnamurti framework because in the Krishnamurti framework you have to bring in the importance of the houses or the cusp. Just the planetary combination alone is not sufficient in the Krishnamurti framework, and for this reason I had also pointed out uh, the weaknesses of the yogas in Bhrigu Nandi Nadi and the Navatara Chakra. Because in both of these methods, the Bhrigu Nandi Nadi and the Navatara Chakra, only the planets are taken into consideration and the houses are ignored. So I think this thing will not take you far. Compared to the replicable trends, finding the replicable trends in a horoscope, and for which Krishnamurti Paddhati is quite reliable. The yogas are is a tough job, and it's not as easy as some might think. Because when you take a certain yoga into consideration, then you are categorically saying something, a very specific thing about that horoscope that should happen. So yogas are difficult compared to the replicable trends. Now, if you take the example of the Mangli yoga in the Parashari astrology, so, these days you have to look for the Mangli yoga from the ascendant, from moon, from Venus, from sun, and there are a lot of ifs and buts and this and that. So the whole scope of this Mangli yoga has become so wide in the Parashari astrology that almost every horoscope will fall in that net of the Mangli yoga. So these yogas are not very dependable. You can't have the confidence to say categorically whether a horoscope is Mangli or not Mangli. If you compare the yoga formation in Krishnamurti Paddhati, it is quite different from the Parashari, and it is very elegant. Logically, the whole thing is very elegant. And let me give you an example. So in KP, let's say if we are looking at the foreign settlement yoga. So what do? We look at the significator of the 12th cusp, and that should be Rahu. And then it should also signify the houses 3, 9, and 12. So on the face of it, this approach looks very neat and elegant, but unfortunately this doesn't work. And if you start collecting the horoscope of people who have gone abroad and settled abroad, then you will not find this yoga appearing in those horoscope. And one of the main reason is the sensitivity of the Cusp Sublord on the time of birth. So, and there are some other factors. So this is not a very reliable kind of a method in Krishnamurti Paddhati, where one can categorically look at a horoscope and say that this person is going to settle down in a foreign country. So now if we remove this whole dependency on the Cuspal sublords in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, then we are only left with the planet signification, uh, and we have to look at how the planet signification, the star lord, sublord, and the way they represent the house, can we find some yogas emerging out of the planet signification without taking into consideration the 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 sublord of the cusp. And of course, when we talk about the signification of the houses, then in Krishnamurti Paddhati, we have to always look at the cusp chart. I was able to find one article in Krishnamurti's publication, so that I'm sharing here. It shows Krishnamurti's interest in the replicable pattern or replicable trend. Now, this data has nothing to do with Krishnamurti Paddhati, but Krishnamurti published this particular data from some foreign author indicating the research that he had done. And I think more than 100, 200, and in some cases even 1,000 horoscopes were collected. And then uh, they were they were studied from a particular point of view to see if any replicable pattern or replicable trend seems to emerge. So I have mentioned a few, and some of them are quite interesting. For example, the death occurred when Saturn and Mars transited over the sun of the nativity. Now, this is something that can be tested. I mean, if we collect about maybe 100 horoscope, and that is what we should do. At least 100 horoscope need to be collected, where the time of birth is reasonably accurate. And now, with the help of the computers, we can immediately uh, write some logic to find out the how much of these horoscope indicate a replicable trend or a pattern. Now, some of these are very, I would say, very generic, and like long journey, ruler of ninth was involved in 99%. This is not a very dependable. If you look at the Krishnamurti's framework, it is more dependable. It also makes use of the ninth house or the third house, but the KP's signification of the third, 9, and 12. So this handshaking, and this works well in most of the horoscope. You find that the handshaking of the third, ninth, and the 12th houses more or less results in the journeys. So KP framework is more, I would say, logical and dependable, and these kind of rules are not very dependable. Now, for example, the for divorce. So if you look at all these rules, these are not very dependable. Krishnamurti Paddhati is more suitable. So the idea of sharing this data was that there are attempts, people are trying to figure it out if they can find some dependable, replicable pattern and replicable trends. Now we will look at what Sri Krishnamurti has mentioned. I remember when I was working on the horoscope of the Bollywood superstar Amitabh Bachchan and the singing machine Lata Mangeshkar's chart. At that time, I started wondering that within KP framework, there is nothing that can help me identify that these horoscopes doesn't belong to ordinary person. These are they are legends in their own field. So, and within KP, what we do is we usually look at the 2, 6, 10, 11. That is what we look at from the, if we have to look how successful a person would be, and then all we do is just put a focus on 2, 6, 10, 11. This is not sufficient. This doesn't distinguish, or this doesn't help in identifying that we are looking at a person's chart that has a legendary status. And this is something that has been bothering me for quite some time. There are a lot of charts that come across for reading, and many of these charts have a reasonably good 2, 6, 10, 11 signification. Now, in the KP framework, this 2, 6, 10, 11 is a dependable combination. If majority of the planets are indicating 2, 6, 10, 11, then you can be sure that this person is going to be quite okay in the life from monetary point of view, career, profession, competition. So those kind of a thing. So 2, 6, 10, 11 trend, I would say, is not a yoke. I would more say a trend of handshaking between 2, 6, 10, 11. The majority of the planets are indicating. Then this is a dependable sutra in the KP framework. But it doesn't help you in identifying that you are looking at someone like Lata Mangeshkar chart, where you can point out that this person has an outstanding or will have an outstanding career in the singing field. This is not an ordinary thing to identify in a horoscope, and on top of it, declare it boldly. So this is where then I started looking into Krishnamurti's various articles and books to figure it out if Krishnamurti has mentioned something more other than the house signification. And I did find a few things that I'm going to share, and that can help us investigate more, explore more in finding and experimenting with the yogas in Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now let me read out these two yogas related to the married life. Now these two yogas, they are not dependent on the sublord of the cusp, they are independent, and they have also nothing to do with the typical house grouping. So one is Mars in 8th, and I'm sure that Mars in 8th means in the KP cusp chart, and in the sub of Jupiter. Partner is extravagant, leads to financial trouble followed by domestic trouble. Now, this is something very noticeable as a yoga in Krishnamurti Paddhati. And if you add that, if you find this kind of a combination in a chart, and on top of it, if let's say the person is also going through the DBA of 6, 8, 12, or or 1, 6, 10, this kind of a combination. So you can combine this yoga with the DBA, yoga plus DBA, and then based on this, then you can alert the client that that particular period might be marked by some domestic trouble. Isn't that something beautiful in Krishnamurti Paddhati as a yoga? Second is that Mars in Moon Sub threatens that partner is short-tempered. Now, if you read this particular yoga in Krishnamurti Paddhati, then you can use this to do a matchmaking. Now, if you get a horoscope where the Mars is in Moon Sub and Krishnamurti has mentioned, then Mars or Moon should occupy a watery sign, then it can become a point that you can share with someone about the character sketch of the would-be wife or the husband. So these kind of yogas are scattered all over the place in Krishnamurti's books. They are not consolidated at one place. But this gives a hope that if we investigate more, then we can be exploring an unknown territory in Krishnamurti Paddhati, and that is the yogas. Let me share a few more. Now, this one is important in a particular sense. The professor has mentioned that the Western astrology claim that Saturn helps concentration. According to their theory, Saturn forms a sextile, a good aspect with the ascendant. So it's going to help a person in the concentration methods. Now note this particular thing. But according to Krishnamurti, now here Professor Krishnamurti is saying, see, first he has mentioned about an observation that is a part of the Western astrology. And now he is going to translate this observation. Professor is sure that this particular Western, the observation is dependable. So he is going to translate this into his framework. And so what he says is, and this is where Professor Krishnamurti is actually discussing the horoscope of person. So Krishnamurti is saying that one is to find out the sublord of the position occupied by moon. So moon is 3 degree 48 minutes, like I mentioned, it's for some specific horoscope. Hence, moon is in the sub of Saturn. So anyone having moon in the sub of Saturn can concentrate. This native also will meditate and concentrate. You see how Western rule has been translated in the Krishnamurti framework, and a yoga has been formed. A lot of time people, when they ask about the spiritual journey or the spiritual development and how much power of concentration they will have, then this particular can be used as a yoga in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now let me share one more. This is the where Professor Krishnamurti mentioned that Vaidyanath Dikshit, which is some old astrologer, and in a very popular book, this Jatak Parijat, has mentioned that one can become a minister. See, why I am quoting this particular passage from one of the Krishnamurti's book is that normally when someone says that will I shine in the political field, will I become a politician of great popularity and those kind of a thing, then in Krishnamurti Paddhati, the normal usual method is to look at the 2, 6, 10, 11. So 2, 6, 10, 11 has a certain monotony that you have to keep on applying, and so sometimes it's not very dependable. So here this particular passage, then let me read out the it says that if Sun, Mars, Mercury and Saturn are conjoined, the person will be a minister. You see, this is an old Parashari kind of a rule. Now, professor says that if you want to apply Krishnamurti Paddhati, then Sun in Saturn sign, Mars star, Mercury sub, or Mercury in Aquarius. He has given this combination where this particular yoga is possible. So, uh, using the standard Parashari yoga, Professor Krishnamurti in many places, I've given you a couple of examples, but there are many places where Professor Krishnamurti has made use of the Parashari yoga and explained how it could be translated in the Krishnamurti's framework, and the same result could be predicted. So this is very important, and this gives us a good hope also that whatever we have learned about the yogas in the Parashari astrology, and sometimes, like I mentioned, these yogas in Parashari astrology, they are very gross many times, and sometimes they have been so diluted with so many ifs and buts that you can't possibly say with confidence. But in Krishnamurti Paddhati framework, it's more precise. So you have more confidence in predicting these kind of a yoga in a person's horoscope. And it also takes you beyond that, the humdrum or the mundane or the monotony of just the house signification 2 7 11 2 6 10 11. That is not sufficient. That is okay. It gives a good idea about the horoscope, but then you need more. So this is where these yogas within the Krishnamurti are very useful. Let's do a practical example over here, and there is this nipun yoga where Professor Krishnamurti mentions that third and fifth house shows one's native intelligence. That we know that the third and the fifth house are for the intelligence. Fourth indicate the student's habit. Now the nipun yoga, if you know about the nipun yoga, the typical nipun yoga is the Sun and Mercury together in one sign. That is the typical Parashari nipun yoga. But within Krishnamurti framework, what professor is mentioning, that Sun conjunction with Mercury or in the constellation or sub of Mercury causes nipun yoga. So what we are going to do is that we are going to say that Sun in the constellation of or sub of Mercury, and additionally we can say signifying third house, third or fifth. Okay. So this is what is going to become a nipun yoga in Krishnamurti Paddhati. Now with that, let's go to the ephemera and see if a person who is going to be born in some future time will have a nipun yoga, or what kind of a combination is required for a person to be born at a certain time, so that the nipun yoga, according to Krishnamurti Paddhati, starts manifesting in his or her life. We are in the ephemeris section of the Jyotish portal. The first thing we have to do is to figure out when Sun is going to be in the Mercury star. Now Sun has a very definite pattern, and we know that sometime in August the Sun goes in the Cancer sign, which has a Mercury star. So let's go to the August month in the ephemeris, and if we start looking at the Sun, right, we start looking at Sun, then we find that now Sun is in Sun is in Cancer. So we find that Sun is in Cancer and the star lord is Mercury and even the sublord is Mercury. So let's pitch in for this date, 4th of August 2024. So this is the date when somebody is born, then the star lord is going to be Mercury and the sublord is also going to be the Mercury. But is this sufficient to create a nipun yoga? Because so many people will be born on that particular day. So let's go and first create a horoscope for 4th of August 24. So we have to create a horoscope for 4th of August. So we will August and we'll take the city as New Delhi. Now if we look at this horoscope, then we find that the time of birth is not very suitable for creating the Nipun Yoga. Because if you look at sun, the sun is in the Mercury star, but it is not signifying the uh, the the third house or the fifth house. So we know that 4th August, then we have to uh, put into focus certain specific time when the sun can go into or sun can become the signification of the third of the or the fifth house. So this you have to keep on experimenting, and then when you keep changing the ascendant, at some point the sun might become the significator of the sun is already in the Mercury star and Mercury sub. So the Nipun Yoga, the I would say part of the Nipun Yoga condition is fulfilled. But then we have to also look at whether the sun is a strong significator of the third and the fifth house. So this is how then you have to identify a certain ascendant, and then ahead of time you can predict that a person who is born on 4th of August having this particular ascendant and also having moon in a certain degree, because the at the time of the at the time when the person goes into the school or the college, Nipun Yoga is fine. It's going to make a person intelligent throughout the life. But when somebody is in the school or the college, at that time he or she gets recognized for the intelligence. So the ideal Nipun Yoga will be the sun's dasha at the time of the school or the college years. So to have that kind of a thing, then you have to look at the position of moon also, that what kind of dasha is going to be at the birth. So on the 4th of August or around that time, when moon is going to be, I think, in the Venus star, so about maybe 15 degrees. So we'll have about 10-15 years of Venus period, and then another 6 years of Sandasha. So person is going to be 20 years of age. So that is the right period. So there are so many conditions that need to be fulfilled. You have to have a proper ascendant, and then you have to have a proper moon so that the dasha also matches. Just the sun being in Mercury star, Mercury sub is not sufficient. So that is where the importance of the muhurt is, where so many factors are coming together to manifest a specific yoga. The yogas mentioned in the old classic, and I'm giving one example. This is one of the yoga that I've that I copied from some old book on astrology. And so this Sanskrit sutra for about a yoga says that native having 10th house lord in a kendra, first, fourth, seventh, or 10th house will have his livelihood by serving the government. This is kind of a yoga. So now the one that we just discussed about the Nipun Yoga in Krishnamurti Paddhati, so that we can write like this. We discuss how proper Nipun Yoga could be formed in the Krishnamurti Paddhati by taking both the planet, star, and the houses. So in Krishnamurti Paddhati, a yoga, Nipun Yoga will be a native born under the Scorpio ascendant, and I'm just giving an example, with the moon in the second charan of the Venus star. So we mentioned that when the moon is in the Venus star, then the person at the time of school and college days will be undergoing the Sun Dasha. And if obviously Sun in the Mercury star, when Sun is in Mercury star with the Scorpio ascendant, you will see that this combination will only happen when Sun becomes the significator of the Sun. At the same time is also the significator of the I guess the third house. So all these combinations come together, and but when you see this kind of a thing in Krishnamurti Paddhati, it is easy for you to understand within the Krishnamurti framework that how this particular yoga is formed. The KP yogas is a very exciting area to look into, and I think that it is a good idea to focus on the popular questions and collect horoscopes related to those popular questions, and try to figure out what kind of replicable pattern, not the trend, pattern is there, so that we can confidently and categorically say yes or no about a specific question. Let me give you one example. These days, one of the very popular or one of the questions that I quite regularly get off and on, and where I have my own hesitation and doubts, is about the foreign settlement. Now, if you look at this news, then you will see that a lot of students are going abroad for their education. So one of the questions that I get quite, I would say, on and off is about the foreign settlement. Finding the whether particular will a person will go to, a student will go abroad for his education, and he or she will be able to get financial aid or even a job. These are not difficult. These are part of a trend in Krishnamurti framework. So you can look at like 3, 9, 12, and on top of it, you can look at the sixth house if somebody is looking for some financial aid at that time. And then immediately after the education, the 2, 6, 10, that also indicate that a person might be able to get a job. But all this is not a guarantee that that particular student is going to settle there permanently or not. And leaving a country and going abroad and settling down permanently in a different country is a big question in a person's life. And unfortunately, I have not been able to have a very solid or dependable answer in the Krishnamurti framework. I did notice that the seventh house has a role to play, and I have shared that observation in some of my videos. But these days, it's not very difficult to get the horoscopes of maybe at least 100 horoscope of people who have gone abroad to various countries and they have settled down over there for permanently. gotten a citizenship and decided to settle down permanently. And with, like I mentioned, within KP framework, it is easy. It's not difficult like in the Parashari astrology. So I have collected a lot of these I would say, the pointers to the yogas in the Krishnamurti Paddhati. I just shared a few, but I'm going to compile them. I'll try to compile them and put them on Jyotish portal so that you can also take a look and then do some more research for validating those yoga. So that's all in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it.